I have my views, you have your views, but if we want a kind of a liberating education, it's not a matter of following my views. That's the wrong way to go. So it should begin, I think, with bringing people together in one or another format and having them work out what they think are the problems that concern them and ought to be discussed, see if they can, what do they want to know, what do they want to discover if, in order to have a better understanding of what's facing them. So for example, to take another case, we could, one of the big problems in the country, huge problem, is the dysfunctional healthcare system. The U.S. spends about twice as much per capita on healthcare as comparable countries and has relatively poor outcomes. And tens of thousands of people are dying every year just because of lack of adequate insurance. And there's personal traumas of all kinds. Well, these are real problems. In fact, if you're concerned about the deficit, I think that's exaggerated, but if one is concerned about the deficit, it would be eliminated if we simply had a healthcare system like other industrial countries, which is not a utopian idea. Well, these are people's personal concerns, and they should be able to interact in ways which allow them to work out what these concerns are and what they ought to know to figure out how to overcome the problems, like to have them investigate why it is that the United States is way off the spectrum in in delivery of healthcare, and off the spectrum in the wrong direction. And the same can be true of any other case that comes along. I mean, there's a lot of concern now about what's called the decline in values of the American working class. There's a new book by Charles Murray that's, opened a lot of discussion about that. Okay, fine, that's something one should investigate. For example, how is it related to the fact that in the 1970s there was a radical change in the American economy, a change in a trajectory of hundreds of years towards deindustrialization instead of industrialization. Production goes on, of course, but overseas, Foxconn in China and so on, and towards financialization of the economy. Well, a huge increase in the amount of capital is just devoted to financial manipulations of one kind or another. All right, what's the effect of those things on the economy? I mean, there's information, there are studies, there are things you can learn about it. What's the information? What's the effect on people's lives if they're living in manufacturing industry here? People are living in the Great Depression. The level of job loss is not different from what it was in the 1930s, with a crucial difference. At that time, people could have a fair degree of confidence it was going to come back. I'm old enough to remember it. My family was unemployed working class mostly. So yeah, objectively much worse than now, but a feeling of some kind of hopefulness. We're all in it together, we'll get out of it somehow. Not now. And people should be exploring why that's the case. And what do we have to learn about the way our society works so that we can understand why it is the case? Or what do we have to learn about our society to be able to focus on the reasons for something that we all know, at least without thinking about it, that the control over television, which is advertiser dominated, of course, is designed to undermine markets, not to produce functioning markets, but to undermine them in exactly the way I mentioned, which everyone more or less knows, by creating uninformed consumers, making irrational choices, and that the same institutions are doing the same thing to the in shredding the democratic system.
devoting huge efforts, billions of dollars, in fact, to create a community of an uninformed electorate which will make irrational choices. These are things we ought to understand. And I think most people would be interested in understanding them. And then out of those interactions can come guidelines